Let's get you more perspective this afternoon amidst all of this movement or developments around Ukraine, because South Africans will begin to wonder about the impact that this could have on us. We can talk about that now, get insight with someone from the South African Global Dialogue Foreign Policy Analyst, Sanusha Naidu, who's joining us now. Sanusha, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. So what is the likely impact for people as far as South Africa from this situation?
Good afternoon, Tembekile, and it's actually quite a grave day today because of what we're witnessing in terms of what was supposed to be a threatened invasion, and now has turned into a serious violation of international law, territorial sovereignty. To come to your question, I mean, watch the markets. For me, the markets are the most important thing in terms of the impact that we're going to feel in South Africa. As I was listening to you, I think the oil price jumped to over $100 per barrel. It's now trading at around $104 a barrel. You're looking at commodity markets that are also going to go into a serious level of vulnerability. Our currencies are going to also be affected. This is because of how interrelated economies are across the world. Also bear in mind that Russia is a major player in the energy market. I was looking at statistics just now from Bloomberg Intelligence, and it's quite frightening to see that in the last several weeks or last several months, the amount of trade that Europe, Western Europe and other European countries have done with Russia, including the US, amounts to about 700 billion US dollars. And mostly that is around energy products and all types of energy products, the gas, oil, etc. Now, we know that the Germans have put on hold the Nord Stream pipeline, which is in the making. But this means that, Europe is going to be severely hurt. And if Europe is going to be severely hurt, it's going to have an impact on global value chains, on commodities, on food prices, on food products like wheat. We may think it's not in our purview in our regional immediate neighborhood, but it's definitely a serious concern for DIRCO and for the South African government and for other African countries.
And given the fact that we won't be spared the ultimate impact from this, yes, we're not involved at the level that NATO perhaps is involved, but South Africa and Russia have maintained good relations. We're both part of the BRICS group of countries. The International Relations Minister, Naledi Pandor, has been pleading this week for diplomacy to be given more time. Do you think there's a role? Does South Africa's voice carry any weight at all in the current situation?
I think South Africa takes the line that is always taken in terms of the fact that that diplomatic solution is the way to go. What really concerns me is that Europe was trying that. When I say Europe, I'm referring to the bigger actors like Germany, Macron, and even to a certain extent, smaller actors in the European Union. The European Union President, for example, is currently giving a press briefing on what they're going to do now, given that Russia has gone over and violated these territorial boundaries and the rule of law. I think for a country like South Africa, and what I've seen in the context of BRICS, I think they find themselves in a little bit of on the back foot. I don't say that to be facetious or to just be critical, but I think that it's difficult right now because Putin has had many engagements. He's been engaging with different stakeholders, but he doesn't seem to be pushing him towards that idea that diplomacy needs to win at the end of the day. And I think that's what is important here for South Africa to maintain its independence in its foreign policy, to basically call on its BRICS partners to say, well, how are you dealing with this? Because we saw the statement come out of the UN Security Council in terms of the special meeting. We saw Antonio Guterres being really, really upset and, saying that this is not what he wanted on his watch. He's the Secretary General of the UN, the United Nations. But I think for South Africa is to get its BRICS partners to say, as BRICS, we respect the territorial sovereignty and integrity of a country. We actually align a lot of our BRICS summit declarations to the idea of the rule of law and respect. Mr. Putin or President Putin, you need to actually now align as well. So I think it's going to be difficult. I can't see this being something that South Africa could go at it alone. China has been a bit hesitant as well. They've denounced the sanctions, and they called it immoral. But I think China is also concerned because it represents other threats and other challenges in terms of its own respect for sovereignty. So I think even the BRICS finds itself in an invidious position. But at the end of the day, I think what's going on in Europe right now is going to basically change Europe forever. And I think the final point I want to make on this, Tembekile, is the fact of the matter is that, what you're seeing right now in the Eurasian landmass, you're looking at a country, you're looking at an actor like Russia, who is essentially reasserting itself in the sense that it wants to get back to that great power glory that it had. Mr. Putin never accepted 1989 or the breakup of the Soviet Union.
And I wonder, Sanusha, then, if money, commodity prices, market movements, is that what is going to ultimately determine, A, how bad this violence gets, and B, how long it lasts?
Well, if I take the second point first, I think for me, the actual duration of this conflict, I mean, you're hearing from Russian media, as well as Mr. Putin in the run-up to what was this incredible speech this morning at 2 a.m., saying that it's not his intention to occupy Ukraine. So in other words, there's the sense that it's going to be a short-term kind of, well, the people are calling it invasion, but attack. And I think this is not something we can take as at face value. I think that the longevity and how long it goes on is going to continue to shatter markets. Markets are just coming together now in the light of a tail end of the coronavirus. It's fizzing, but in terms of how it's fizzing, as a kind of tail end. And I think the problem here is going to be the global supply chain. What goes into the global markets, how that's going to cause impacts on global markets. And the one thing I want to say is, in Europe, you're going to have to wait and you have to watch and see rations, food insecurity, a refugee crisis, a humanitarian crisis. I mean, you were talking to pictures coming out of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, of people just jumping in their cars on the automotive highways. They all are just kind of trying to get somewhere. So that band of countries that actually act as a kind of bandwidth against Russia, Poland, and so forth, they're going to start experiencing these high levels of border post influx of refugees, people leaving homes, etc. So I think that for us in South Africa and for other countries, it's going to be what's going to be the disruption to value chain. In terms of where we're going with this, I think also what's going to be important to bear in mind is, the impact that this is going to have on this idea that the president of the EU Commission, as she's speaking now, is talking about the hardest sanctions to hit Russia. I think that's going to be important to watch. What does it mean, hardest sanctions? If you're going to go into the Black Sea, which is an important area as well, are you going to place sanctions? Are you going to basically put moratorium on companies that are from Russia doing business, using it as a transit port, using it as a transit maritime area? How is this going to work? I think, at the end of the day, Mr. Putin said, I looked at the sanctions and I'm calling your bluff on this.